Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and today I'm doing a discussion over Mythwind, which is a cozy style solo/cooperative campaign game. And yes, we have another campaign game to talk about on the channel. And if you're wondering, for the most part, on the channel I do a lot of campaigns, a lot of series that are very long running, and I try to do as many of them as possible that I feel like would be entertaining to watch. And Mythwind is actually an exception because I don't think it would be entertaining to watch just from the sheer nature of the way the game is structured. So for this is actually kind of going to be the preliminary discussion for a lot of campaign games, as I do after playing a few sessions. We talk about our game so we can get a review out there, and then it's like once the campaign is over or we're done playing, then we do a secondary discussion talking about the game overall. So this is that preliminary discussion. And at this point in time, I have played about a year in the game, which is through the 4 seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And I have been playing it at 2 specifically. So I have been playing with the Ranger, and the Crafter is the secondary. So I have not played with the Merchant or the Farmer. So I'm not 100% certain on how these two play, but I do know how the Ranger and the Crafter play. And the characters are completely asynchronous. How they operate is completely different from one another, which is really cool. And these are the 4 that come in the base game. There is an expansion that brings in a 5th one, which is the Innkeeper. Also haven't tried that. So what are my overall thoughts on Mythwind? Well, I think this is actually going to be a very polarizing game overall. I think that this is, like, the hype around it right now is because it's new, and the innovativeness of the game will kind of send people in 2 directions. Either they're going to really love it, or they're going to really hate it. Because it is interesting. And the concept of the game is that it's meant to be very relaxed. Like I said, cozy is a word that they use, and it's, from my understanding, meant to just kind of be played forever. And the best comparison I can give is kind of a Stardew Valley Animal Crossing vibe, where you just play. Like, every session doesn't necessarily have a goal. It's not like a lot of other traditional campaign games where you can set aside a time to be like, okay, we're going to do this mission, or we're going to get through these many lantern years, like for KDM, or this, like all the expansions, all the campaign games that I'm doing right now, like Aeon Trespass Odyssey. Okay, we're going to get through as many days as possible. Or Frosthaven, Gloomhaven style games where you can actually pick a mission to set up and do. Or, Sleeping Gods is very open-ended, but you at least still have goals, like overall objectives to eventually finish the campaign. Mythwind doesn't have any of that. This is almost designed to just kind of be set up, and you just casually get to it and play. And I think that the way that you go about that is going to be very appealing to a lot of people, and not at all for others. So let's talk about the actual structure of the game. Every day, the game is broken up into dawn, daytime, and dusk. And each character has different steps that they take in each one of those. Like, so for example, the Ranger, he is the only character that actually leaves town. The town is broken up into 3 boards. Which, it didn't have to be broken up into 3 boards. It could have very much just been 1 board, but I think they did that just for the packaging, like the way to store it and stuff. But it's broken up into 3 boards, and during the daytime or during the dawn, for example, the Ranger can go out on expeditions. So he has to decide whether he wants to go into town or go on an expedition. And that's kind of something that's different from him. The Crafter doesn't have that. Then you go to daytime, and every character has their own mini that they will either send to one location in town, or, well, that's pretty much it. Everyone except the ranger will go somewhere in town. And town is broken up into buildings that you build, or actual action spots. And you go there, do the action, which could be contribute resources. There's 4 resources that you use to build new buildings. You can go on adventures. I'm going on an adventure, which is basically an event card. Like, you just kind of have, you have a choice. Like, you'll read the adventure. You can build buildings. Like I said, you can free up locations. There are empty spots that you can free up, which allow for buildings to be built. And then you go, once you're done doing your action, each character has a specific action they can do. The ranger can collect equipment that they need to go out. The crafter can hone and refine materials that they use to try and fulfill orders. And then the dawn comes, and it's just kind of like a cleanup step. And then you rinse and repeat. That's literally it. There's a weather deck, I should also mention. The weather deck will cause, there's a build queue. When you build buildings, it goes into a queue. We'll advance that. It can potentially have season effects. So like this is summer right now. If you ever have a sunny day, cloudy day, and a sunny day, then that's going to increase your income. So that might happen. But for the most part, you're kind of doing the same thing over and over and over until a weather card prompts you to pull from your event deck. And I feel like that's a lot of the game, is you really just do the same thing until an event card comes in. And normally I'd be like, well, that's just insanely boring. And I think it could. That's kind of where I'm at, is I think Mythwind is a good game. Structurally, it's really good. Like, they're cozy, nonchalant kind of play style. You're not meant to really go in and I wouldn't say binge this game. You just kind of play it. You play for an hour, you get some stuff done, and then you go do something else. And if you go in with that mindset, I think that you can have a really good time. I played that entire year, which the event deck starts off as 9 cards, which is essentially each season is 9 rounds. And that takes a little bit of time. So, I played all that in one sitting, and weirdly enough, I didn't get, fatigued. It was kind of I played Stardew Valley soundtrack, played music, and just played. It works, the rounds do go very quick. It's efficient. But I do think that normally if you really think about it, it's all you're kind of doing is going through the motions of what your character does, and then you read an event. And that's kind of the spice in the game. Is you're like, ooh, we get an event. Let's see what happens. And the world is very mystical. It's high fantasy. It's not. There's no big bad. There's no there's corruption coming and you have to save the valley or save the whatever. It is very you're hanging out with sprites and fairies and living in the woods and building buildings. And that's where the theme comes in. What you inherently do as your character is very mechanical, but it does kind of make some thematic sense. For example, as the ranger, which is who I'm playing, can go on expeditions. And those expedition cards can be affected by the weather. And normally it's oh, okay, this is the expedition card. Okay, it's sunny. I get a compass item. And just boom, just goes right there. And it's okay, well, that's not really thematic. But if you really kind of think about it, it's no, it is sunny. The title of this expedition means that because it's sunny, I'm able to see a path. Therefore, I was able to find a shortcut. That's why I got this compass item. So you can pull theme into it, but the game doesn't, give it to you. You kind of have to put in a little bit of work for that. Or adventures have weather cards that will affect. It's one of the adventures we had was, hey, there's a calico stuck in a tree. Do you go and get help, or do you try it yourself? If you try it yourself, it's if it's raining and you roll dice, subtract 1 from your result. Well, that makes sense. I was trying to climb a tree while it's raining. And that kind of stuff I do enjoy. I'm glad that they bring in elements that just feel thematically appropriate. So that's whenever the events and like the adventures kind of really allow you to get invested in what you're doing. And then there's also just the buildings you're doing. And the buildings that you're looking at, there's a bunch of them. And there's a building tree in the back, which is nice. That it's like you start off with the longhouse, and then it's like, okay, well, like the longhouse leads to the trading post and the general store. And you kind of look at what they offer you, and hey, what's after that? And nothing stop. You don't have to go down one specific tree. You can build both, but if you're kind of looking for a direction, you can look for just stuff you want in town. You're not going to be able to have every building, but a lot of buildings replace other buildings. That's like, hey, you now have a chapel. Okay, if you want to build a church, that replaces the chapel. So stuff like that. And what I've done is I kind of build buildings where I think that they would be nice in town. And that helps with like it's kind of like the Animal Crossing kind of thing where it's like, this person wants to move. I can place them somewhere where it would be nice for them to live. Or I really hate this person. Let's kind of put them over here so I never have to talk to them. So it is nice. You get to look at the board and be like, you know what? Let's put the lumber mill in the middle of the woods. That makes sense. Or up here in the mountains, let's put the quarry there. So that kind of gives you a little bit more of like this peaceful theme that if you do like those kinds of games, the Stardew Valleys, Animal Crossing, Harvest Moon kind of stuff, then I think this game does evoke that very well. The one thing it is missing is like there's no relationships that you're building. There's barely other people that you're kind of talking to. So it's more of the mechanical side of those games, but it is involved here. But yeah, it's very, very interesting that they would make a game that's like this, that you just kind of aren't, it's not really meant to be finished. There apparently is an overall story that can and will end, but it's not really geared towards that. It's just kind of, you just play it. There's no big end of year stuff. It's not like marked or categorized of like, okay, we finished year 1. We only have 10 years left of the whole game. And once we finish all 10 years, the game's over. It doesn't have that. It's like, yeah, okay, we finished a year. Back to spring. Like, you don't have to do a New Year's celebration or anything. But I will say that the writing is well done, which kind of had me a little bit worried because this is from Open Owl Studios, who did Stars of Icarios. And while Stars had a lot of really good things about it, basically it being Gloomhaven meets X-Wing meets Seventh Continent, I really liked that, but the writing was poor at best. Like, it wasn't amazing writing. So whenever it came to this one, I was like, okay, maybe it'll be better. And it is. Granted, it's not as narrative heavy. They're all, confined to these event cards or the adventure cards, but it works. And I'm also not saying that the game doesn't have any drive each session. Like, you do have a stack of goal cards, and you kind of basically have a goal card a season. That's like, hey, each character needs to have a skill, or you need to have your production at this certain number by the end of the season, and then you check if you did it, and then it's kind of like, okay, here's a reward for doing it, put in a new goal card, and kind of like that. You didn't do it, well, here's a penalty, and that's kind of it. So there is stuff to kind of do, but it's not in a bigger sense. There's not like oh man, eventually we'll get to the final boss, or eventually we'll have explored the entire land, and that's that. So as for the characters, I do really like how different they are, even though I haven't played the farmer or the merchant. It mentions what they're about. Like, the merchant's goal is to balance the needs of every shifting market to make the most profit. Competition will be stiff as rival merchants are also here to compete for the wealth of the Mythwind Valley. So that's the merchant and the farmer, who is the most angry-looking guy I've seen. His goal is to plant and harvest crops for the citizens of the Mythwind Valley. The farmer tends to crops, manages livestock, and purchases equipment, all in an effort to run an efficient and profitable farm that produces a steady income of coins. So, one thing that I actually kind of find interesting is, yeah, all the characters do play different. Like, the ranger goes on expeditions, utilizes cards. the merchant has like this or not the merchant, the crafter has like this workshop area that they're pulling from a bag to be able to get goods and refine them to fulfill orders. The farmer I know does this polyomino thing with his crops. And again, I don't really know about the merchant all too much, and I don't really know about the innkeeper except that they have patrons that come in and they're trying to make happy. But what is also this is like I said, this is cooperative. So where's the cooperation? Well, there really isn't any. It's more of like, hey, it's cooperative by default because you're not competing with one another. There's not anything that you do with another player that matters. It's more of like, hey, can I go to that spot instead? That's literally it. Or what building do we want to build together? Or, hey, I can afford this better than you can, so let me do that action, and that's it. Because you have two different types of workers. You have people, which are the orange, and then you have sprites, and those are kind of your own workers. And they will come into the valley, go into a worker placement spot, and you can go hire them. Well, when you hire them, they're yours. So you can't, like, hire them for other people. When you gain money, like, if I were to gain all this money from doing an adventure, it's like, hey, you get 50 coins. Well, that's mine. I can't give that to someone. Be like, oh, you need to purchase this. I can't help you in that. So the cooperation is kind of not there at all. It's very solitaire. Like, hey, I'm on my own expedition. I come back. Yeah, I provide to the overall town by giving these goods or getting the money to be able to clear spots. But, like, I feel like it would have been really, really cool if all the four characters played different, but they relied on one another. You know, like, kind of like, oh, I mean, this game is not even closely related to this, but kind of like in Feudum, where Feudum had all those different guilds that had to push and pull from another one, where it's like the farmer had goods that they would sell to the shop owner, and the shop owner would sell its goods to the alchemist, and the alchemist would create these devices for the knight, and they all kind of made thematic sense of how they were pushing to one another. Like, okay, well, the person running the store needs goods. Okay, well, where can they get those goods? From the farmer. And where does the farmer get their goods? Somehow, I think it came from the church, but I don't remember, like, it did make thematic sense, because there were 6 guilds, and they all cycled through each other. I think that would have been really cool if that's how these characters worked. Like, if the farmer would produce goods, those goods could be purchased from the merchant, and then the merchant would sell different types of goods, like do trading stuff, to be able to get the goods for the crafter that they need. And the ranger, I don't know how the ranger gets involved in all that. They go on expeditions and they get stuff, but it's all about goods, really, and selling goods to make money, because you need money to be able to open up land and eventually just get stuff, get buildings built, or get skills that you might need. So it would have been really, because that would have made a little bit more sense. Like, if it was cooperative, if you were able to kind of work together as, hey, we're 4 different types of occupations that are trying to make our town and this valley thrive. So it'd be really neat if it's like, oh, hey, farmer, what are you trying to plant right now? Because to fulfill this order, I need this. Can you perhaps plant that and make it so we can start making some money together? Like, maybe the crafter or the merchant were 2 characters that provided money, but the farmer and the ranger were ones that got the goods, and they had to rely on each other like that. I think that would have made the game a little bit more. I know it goes against, like, their cozy just play kind of lifestyle, but for me, I think that would have made the game, like, that much more interactive. But at the same time, I think that would make it a little bit more complex, because you would almost need 4 people to play it. So, and I understand it's not that kind of game. I'm just looking at things that, like, I wish that could have been involved a little bit more, because other than that, I love the fact that all the characters play different. And one really cool thing about the game is at the end of a season, you can just pack up your character and play someone else. You don't have to stick with what you were doing. It's not like, oh man, if I switch to the innkeeper now, they'll be underleveled. There's none of that. It's just, okay, well, done with the crafter for now. I want to play someone else. And you can, and it's perfectly fine. So, the single best thing about the game, well, first of all, there's a ton of content. Like, there are 80 different adventures. 80 adventure cards. And, well, there's actually a little bit more because there was a promo pack, and 2 expansions that kind of will just seamlessly get integrated into the game. And the adventures only happen if you decide to go do one. It's an action space that you send your miniature to. And it's like, that's what I'm doing, is I'm just going to have an adventure, see what happens. But if you never do that, then you'll never see those adventure cards. The events, there are, how many? 154? Yeah. Plus whatever the expansions bring. But base game, there's 154 events. And they also get seamlessly integrated. Like, they did a really, really good job of having you out of this box as much as possible. Which, I've played campaign games where it was just constantly having you, like, break immersion and go dig for shit, and I hate that. Like, I really hate that. It's been ingrained for me because I set up to record, and if I have to get up to go get more stuff, I'm immediately annoyed. And that's transitioned into if I'm not even recording. Like, I just don't... I had it organized. I don't want to have to keep looking for stuff. But yeah, you read an event, something happens, and it's like, oh, shuffle in card 12. And you're like, oh, okay, here's card 12, boom, 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 done. Everything else is like you barely touch the extra box. This kind of like organization reminds me of Unsettled, except I think this does it better because it fits a majority of the game in it. The one thing it doesn't, which pisses me off, and I don't understand why, like, companies do this, is like, if you're making an expansion, it's not like the expansion came out a year later. And like, you're like, yeah, we weren't planning on doing it, but yeah, sorry, here's the core box and here's the expansion box. It's like, this was Kickstarter or GameFound or whatever, so you were making it all at the same time. Fit everything in one box. Because like the expanded Horizon expansion comes with the Innkeeper. Well, the Innkeeper doesn't fit in the box with the extra cards and stuff. So it's in the mini. So that shit's just so annoying to me. But other than that, at least it fits everything else. Like, the Unsettled was like, yeah, this fits 2 planets and there's 9. It's like, what? Like, what? Okay, so I have to carry all these loose planet boxes around. It was so dumb. But yeah, like, everything is very organized. Like I just showed you, this is the 3 things for the town. So whenever you're setting up, you just basically, you like pull this out and then you go boom, boom, boom. I mean, not in this haphazard way, but, and then whenever you're done, you just put them all up and then just put that there. And then you put the lid on top. And that's saved. All the characters have in their rule book how you save the game for them, which is really nice. One thing to keep in mind is whenever you're trying to teach this game, it is asymmetric. So if you don't know, like if you don't read if you're playing a 4-player game, like, it's hard to teach because, like, I had someone who they were asking me like specific questions, like, oh, what's this on the crafter? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't read to play the crafter. I learned how to play my character, the ranger, and the core game. And the rulebook is done really well. I think they learned quite a bit. When you're looking for what buildings do, there's a glossary or an appendix on all the buildings, and it's very crystal clear when you're needing stuff. So, yeah, I do think the single best thing about this game is its save system. For a game that's meant to just be played very, very casually, it is so simple to set up and tear down. And that is amazing. Because, like I said, you just have like the box that has it does have a good insert. That's why it bums me out so much that they just have that loose expansion box. But whenever you're putting things up, you just grab it, and okay, that's like the town board. And then, well, you have these stupid ass velvet bags, but it's like, okay, so there's the town board, and here's the 2 characters, or the 4 characters. Boop. Boop. And then the rule books. And you're done. You are done tearing down. And that's basically how it goes. It's extremely simple to do. So, yeah. What are my overall thoughts on Mythwind? Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give this a 7. I think this is a good game. And I feel like, I know there's an expansion coming. I have no idea what it's bringing. I'm very curious as to how this is, what the reception on this game is a year from now. Because right now it's like, ooh, it's a new game. And there's a lot of these games coming out lately. These very non-aggressive, just very peaceful, camaraderie, harmony kind of games. I mean, literally, you can compare this right to Earthborn Rangers. Both have the exact same overall feel of a game of, hey, like in Earthborn Rangers, when you're dealing with like a predator, like a bobcat or something, you can do kind of like progression towards it or harm. But it's like, well, the harm isn't damage. Like, we want to make sure that you're not attacking it. You're just kind of causing it enough stress to make it leave. It's like, you're making noise or kind of making it uncomfortable, then it runs away. You're not hurting it. Or the other way is, hey, you're talking to it, making it feel comfortable, and eventually cause it to kind of leave. That's the overall theme of Earthborn Rangers. Mythwind has that exact same, overall feel. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this game kind of continues to I don't know, just land itself in this campaign. I mean, I do think that this has legs and it has a place in the industry because, yeah, it's like once you play a lot of campaign games and you're like, oh man, a lich as an enemy? Okay, yep, that's your fantasy. You kind of have to start diversifying yourself whenever you can't just do generic fantasy anymore. And if you are, you have to have really cool mechanisms. And this does have unique mechanisms. I can't really think of another game that's like this because Earthborn Rangers is the same in tone alone. Gameplay, not even close. So I think OpenL Studios can certainly keep this game going. This could be a lifestyle game for some people if they keep supporting it. And that's what's going to almost have to happen. And they already have expansions and ready going for a reprint. What I would like to see from the game is I would like to see overall goals, like bigger goals, versus like the little ones of like, oh, have 5 income. It's like, whatever. Like, I would like to see just things for all the characters to go towards, like as a collective group, that make you feel like you're actually working with other people. I know they can't really integrate something that now has the characters rely on one another. That would have to be designed from the ground up. I know they can't make it to where, hey, the farmer can't get this unless the character, the innkeeper provides it to them or something like that. I know that can't be designed, but I'd like to see more cooperation versus just, hey, well, we're not attacking each other, so we have to cooperate. Just overall valley, like town building objectives. Like in Animal Crossing, your main objective is fulfilling your loan on your house. In Stardew, it's, to my understanding, I've officially never actually played Stardew, but I've seen it played a lot. I think it's to finish the community center. Like, that's like your big goal. Not that if you complete that, like once you finish your paying off your loan, it's not like the game's over. but you're like, hey, I feel accomplished. I would like to see that in Mythwind, and that certainly might come up. Like I said, I'm only a year in, and I have 150 fucking events still left to go through. So there's still a lot of game left, and that can absolutely be thrown in. Just as of right now, I'm not seeing it. So it could just be a slow burn kind of game that will progressively, just very slowly do all that, and that is perfectly fine. If it wants to be a slow game, that's okay. I could see this game going up to an 8. I'd be very surprised if it ever went up to a 9. But I could also see it drop into a 6. I think this could be a slightly above average game that loses its luster. But as of right now, like, I wasn't bored. Even though I was very aware that what I was doing as the Ranger was the exact same thing. It just worked. So there's something to be said about that. But I feel comfortable at a 7. I think Mythwind is a good game. And we'll just see where it goes from here. Yeah. And like I said, there will be a second discussion for this, either whenever I feel like I finished the campaign, or whenever I'm kind of like, you know what, I think I'm done, then there'll be a discussion for that. But at the very least, there will always be a second discussion for campaign games. And yeah, that is my thoughts on Mythwind. Let me know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.